Good morning. A little loud today, isn't it, y'all? How many of y'all like it a little louder? You're the rock concert folks. Anybody? Y'all are funny. Everybody awake today? You here? You present? You know you are at church.
What's up? How are you?
What? Who's going on? Who's that? I don't know. That's all right. We're good. Hey, it's great to see everybody. If you're a guest today, my name is Ryan. Don't adjust your TV sets. I'm the lead pastor here at Crossroads Church, and it's great to have you with us. If you are a guest and you're wondering what we're all about, or you'd love to just kind of ask any questions, inside of your program is my cell phone number, 207-608-1106. Send me a text message. Love to set up coffee, old fashions, whatever works for you, and answer any questions you might have about our church, about myself, about our journey, my family's journey here to intersect with the story of Crossroads and to be a part of what's been happening here in Northern Colorado. And I would love to hear your story, like what you are doing here, right? All that good stuff. So you can send that text message to me. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can, which is usually within a day, and we'll get it set up. That'd be a lot of fun. How many of you have been able to do that and have coffee? And we've gotten together just so people know that I'm not making that up. So you can look around, people actually do it, and they're still alive. I don't take them out and murder them in a field or something, right? That story's not coming out in the news. So, well, hey, if you are a guest today, or if you are not a guest today and you went to reach for talk notes, you notice there are no talk notes. Don't have cold sweats. There are no fill-ins today, because today we're on our off ramp of our series. And so one of the things that I love to do is to give ourselves a little bit of space to process what we've been learning. So one of our core values here is wisdom. I don't know if you know this or not, but wisdom does not happen overnight. Sometimes we need to learn some things, relearn some things, relearn some things again, and then maybe relearn it. And then just sit with it. And so for this week, we're going to kind of sit with it. And we have some conversations, one on video, sat down earlier in the week, and then one live, where we're just going to talk with some regular people who aren't paid to believe, like me. I'm paid to believe. I don't know if you know that or not. So we're going to talk to some people that don't have to and are giving us some courage today. We've been in a series on resilience, and so that's what our conversations are about. Like, what does resilience look like in everyday normal life? I want to encourage you to think about how you would answer the questions that we're going to be talking about. That's kind of your job today, is to say, okay, if Ryan were to call me and say, hey, would you participate in a panel at the end of a series, right? How would you answer these questions? How would you think about what you've learned and processed over the last few weeks? I have this crazy, weird idea that when you go to church, you should actually learn something, right? And be able to apply it into your life. But how many of you know, like, if you've been around this business for a long time, it's just constant information. Like, week after week after week, it's something new, and we don't really ever give ourselves some space to just kind of apply and think about it. And so that's what we're doing today. I do try to do this at the end of every series. So just always be aware, you might get the tap. We might pull you in from the bullpen for a conversation like this, all right? But your job right now is to make Carly and Caleb feel super welcome, because they're showing all the courage in the world to come and be here today. So give Carly and Caleb a great big hand as they join us here on stage. I love it. That was a terrible round of applause, but that's okay. We'll save it for the end. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you very much. All right, so Caleb and Carly, we were just talking about this. Sounds like it should be like a Disney show, right? The Caleb and Carly show. So
Yes.
Love that you're here. Thank you so much. I know it takes a lot of courage and bravery to come and just be quite a bit vulnerable and share a bit of your story. So before we talk about resilience or anything, maybe introduce yourselves. Tell us a little about who you are in your everyday normal peacemaking life, and maybe a little bit of how you met.
Yeah, so my name is Caleb. I am a custom woodworker over at the shop called The Artisan. And so I make custom furniture and cabinets and yada yada. I also am a music performer and a music producer. I've played drums here before. It's always a blast. Yeah. This is my lovely fiance, Carly.
Yes, I'm Carly. I work for the Colorado Eagles. I do merchandising, and I work for the youth fundraising teams there.
I think we have some Eagle season ticket holders. I see y'all post on Facebook, or yeah, you can clap for yourselves. That's fine. It's wonderful. If you don't clap for you, who's going to? Come on, people. You got to love yourself. I don't know what your faith tradition taught you, but you should love yourself. All right, here we go. Awesome. That's wonderful. How did you all meet?
You take this.
Yeah, actually, she was my axe throwing coach at an axe throwing bar.
Right on. I love it.
I know. I love being able to say that.
That's not one you hear every day.
I know. It's
not
awesome.
one you hear every day. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we met a few years back there, and I've just been madly in love ever since.
Right on. And getting married soon?
Yeah, getting married in September.
Yeah. You can clap for that. That's good. I love it. Now, and how did you all intersect with Crossroads Church? How did you find your way here? What was that about? Why? And better question, why did you come back? Right? So you came once, but you did come back, which is always the better question I like to ask people. So,
Pastor Dennis is my uncle, and I came back because he put me in the trunk of his car and made me.
See, there you go. Like Anderson royalty here.
Yes.
I love it. Carly, how about you?
I started attending Crossroads right after I met Caleb. He brought me here, and I immediately resonated with the church, and I loved the way that you spoke and the way you do your services. And
good answer.
We kept coming back.
Good answer.
Yeah.
No, that's fun. I love it. So we've been in this series on resilience, and we've talked about things like you're the captain of your own ship. We talked about things like resurrection being our mainsail, and that metaphor for that there is a love that is more powerful than death, and that if that's our mainsail, we can navigate through a lot in life. We talked about these different metaphors and ways of thinking about as a captain where we put our attention, our thoughts, our values, how we recognize what we can control, what we can't control, where we're going to put our energy. So we've talked about a lot of different principles that are about building a resilient life. Any of those resonate in particular with you all throughout the journey, and you thought, oh, I heard that, and it made some impact in your life outside of here? Let me ask you that first.
So for me, every week coming here, throughout the whole Mainsail service, you have mentioned values with every single sermon you've done. And to me, I've known I've had values, but I never identified or consciously identified values that resonate with me. And so hearing you speak of values, I actually went home and I looked up values that I felt resonated with me. Some of the top ones are authenticity, honesty, and respect for myself and others. So an example of resiliency in my life was 3 years ago today, I actually moved to the Grand Tetons as a summer job. And I was 6 months sober at the time. I went there for the mountains and the animals and the hikes, and I soon realized everyone else there was there to party. And so I had to think about what I could control and what I could not. I could not control the people around me and what they were doing, but I could control myself and my sobriety. So I ended up actually moving back to Colorado once I realized it was going to affect my sobriety if I stayed. And as soon as I moved back, I met Caleb. And so I really believe that resiliency is the strength and power every day that you need, but it can take you to places you've never even thought of.
Yeah.
I'm proof that God answers prayer.
You're proof that God answers prayer. We won't ask what the prayer was, but we'll assume. No,
I'll take what I can get.
She was like, Lord, bring me a challenge. No. Only kidding. So let's back up to, you're in the Tetons. Like, you moved up there. It's beautiful. You've got a vision for what this is going to look like in the sailboat metaphor, right? I mean, you've left the dock. You have sailed. You made it to the destination. How hard was that to walk? And like, maybe, how hard was that decision to say, maybe this isn't the thing? And all of the planning and all of the, like, what were the emotions were involved with that?
So it was very hard. I at first didn't even want to accept going back home. I thought I could stay, power through. I would just be more hydrated than everyone else. That's what would motivate me. But then I realized if I had one drink and I stayed and did what I would normally do, which would be the life of the party, I would be losing my faith, because my faith is the reason I am sober today. And like I said, it's a daily reprieve. It's one day at a time that I have to know why I'm choosing my sobriety. It's because I'm also choosing my higher power, God.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, that is an amazing amount of resiliency to make a move like that with a vision and go, hey, I'm going to adjust, and I'm not going to see it as a failure. And it actually becomes the exact opposite of failure, probably one of your biggest successes, right? And you learn so much. That's amazing. Caleb, how about you? Any in particular topic or principle kind of stick with you throughout the series?
Same goes for me, double.
Double.
Yeah. No, I think that, so I am usually naturally a very stressed and anxious person. And so the talks about resilient and how you handle stressful and negative situations has been very beneficial to me. One thing that you mentioned is when something negative happens to you, how are you going to handle that situation? And you mentioned you can kind of make it a challenge, like, you know what, no, I'm going to take care of this. That's been very beneficial, especially when it's like, let's say like financial issues, which everybody has. I could say like, you know what, we got $20 for the week. How are we going to get groceries? I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how, but I'm going to make it into a challenge, and I'm going to turn it into a positive thing, and I'm just going to get it done.
I love it.
And as we are getting married, and I know we'll want to start a family and have kids, one of the most resilient people I could think of is actually my dad. He lives on a farm in Wyoming and works very, very hard. And still through all of that, I've never heard him yell or get angry or show any form of stress. And so just that quiet, safe, peaceful resilience that I get from him, that's something that I would like to adopt into my own life. I just want to be a safe, quiet, peaceful person for those around me.
That's great. In contemplative spirituality, we call that being a non-anxious presence.
Yes, exactly.
That we can be put in the middle of an anxiety-full situation, and I can be the one non-anxious presence there.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not easy, though.
No, as you can tell.
Even Jesus had his moments of turning over the tables.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So let's take a turn. Let's talk about this idea of spirituality and faith and your own faith journeys. And where resiliency kind of intersects. I think you started to speak to that a little bit, Carly. So how does faith play into this? And this is not a leading question. Like, I recognize that a lot of folks come and sit, particularly at Crossroads, and they're going, I don't even know. Like, I have to be resilient because of my faith, like in spite of it, like whatever that was. Or some would say, I lean into my faith resiliency. Where are you all in that journey individually, maybe, how faith intersects with your resiliency?
Yeah, I definitely lean into it, like I said, daily, with going based off of what we control and what we cannot control. Something that's helped me is if you go by a hula hoop today and you stand in it, everything inside the hula hoop you can control. Everything outside of the hula hoop you cannot. And once I got that in my head, I could start focusing on the things I could control while letting go of the things I cannot. Instead of trying to direct my life, I realized I'm just the actor and that God is the director. And so the more I try to control, the more my life is not going to go my way.
Yeah.
Whereas if I let go and surrender daily, life will be whatever it's meant to be, and you won't feel the need to change it or to try and make it adjust to you. It just will be for you.
Yeah. I love the way you put that, because it really does draw that they're not antithetical, the idea of being the captain of my own ship, but then also recognizing I'm not in control. That there are things about that I can't control, but that doesn't mean I'm not the captain, right? Yeah, that's great. How about you, Caleb? Faith, where does faith fit in for you in all of this?
Yeah, so I have been, over the past many years, kind of doing a deconstruction and then reconstruction of my faith and what I'm believing in. And actually, there's a class we go to in the morning, not even a class, just a conversation group that we go to in the morning called Fresh Perspective that I highly recommend. I was
Shameless
not paid
plug.
to say this, but I recommend going to it because it's just a good place where, like, similar people can talk about their ideas of faith, who they have faith in, and that could be different from each individual person, and just having a safe and accepting place to be able to have those conversations is really important. And also going back to what she was saying about being kind of the captain of your own ship, that's something that we've been really adopting in our relationship that's been good. We know how to tell each other, like, hey, you're steering my ship.
Yeah.
I need to steer my ship, you steer your ship. That's been good, but
yeah. So let's pretend somebody's here for the first time. I'm sure there's at least one person. We usually put out a free coupon or something and they show up. So they haven't heard any of the talks, right? And they're like, oh, resilience, it's interesting, but I don't know if I want to give up, 7 hours of my life to go back. What would be kind of the 1 week or the one kind of principle that you would say, hey, I would encourage you to explore this idea or take this home with you. If you can only watch 1 week, watch this week. Like, is there one that stuck out for you in particular?
Yeah, honestly, it's hard because they're all really good. I would honestly probably say the first week, just posing the idea of you're the captain of your ship and the path of resilience, just that metaphor has really been stuck in my head. And then hopefully if they see that, then they'll just want to watch all the others.
Keep on going.
Yeah, that's what we do. Like, we'll even listen to it in the middle of the week. Like, I could use just a little bit more.
It's like week 1's the gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit more.
Exactly.
All right. How about you, Carly? Anything?
Actually, I just rewatched the last one you did for Mother's Day, and I loved what you were saying, even on there about values, about them being the, how did you word it? Through the choppy water, they're what helps us.
Yeah.
And I really think that really stuck with me. I want to say the last one, but yeah, this has been a great series, and we've just been so happy to be a part of it.
Good. Yeah, those values pull us back to our center, right? Like running around, like it's the why, answers the big question, the why. Do me a favor, give Caleb and Carly a huge round of applause. Hey, I sat down with a friend of Crossroads named Paul this past week to hear a little bit of his story, who had quite a tragic event 7 months ago. So check out his story of resilience here. Man, thanks for having a conversation for a few minutes. And as we've been in this series on resiliency, and we'll be showing this video on the day where we recap and hear stories of resiliency, I thought of you in our conversations. And 7 months ago, life really changed. A storm hit. Maybe what happened, and what has the last 7 months been like for you?
Well, it's been a total life change. I mean, I just had an accident in the bedroom, believe it or not. I think I slipped on the sheet or whatever and hit my head and suffered a C5, C6 partial break in my spinal cord, in the neck specifically. And I went from being a sort of a normal person, 65-year-old normal person who could walk, and now I mean, I had a limp. I had 3 knee operations on my right knee prior to this, so it wasn't 100%, but I could walk and hike and bike, and did a lot of biking all over the place here. And now I'm in a wheelchair. My legs are not moving quite the way they used to, and my hands, they tend to do what they call this, I forget what it's called, but they curl up and have to put splints on them at night to try and spread them out so that they don't stay that way because of the ligaments, the one ligament being damaged on the one side that opens up your hand.
Yeah. And this happened 7 months ago.
Yeah.
And how long were you in patient care through that over these last 7 months?
Well, it's funny. We went to the morning after it happened, when they finally came and got me, because I was upstairs. Sue was in Utah, and I was alone about 8 hours on the floor. And then when they came and got me, I went to the hospital over here and spent about a week in there, and they sewed up my neck. And I went to a rehab center in northern Colorado, and I was there for about a week and a half. And my incision opened up. So I had to go back to the hospital. Then we went to another rehab center for about 2 months, which wasn't a very good one for my...
Yeah, I remember us talking, it was almost like you were just in a holding pattern for 2 months.
Yeah, it was. It's basically a assisted facility for a lot of old people. They don't get around, stuff like that. And I was one of like one or two people that could get around on my own in a wheelchair. And then finally I went to Pam, where you came that one time in Westminster, which had more rehab facilities and was better for me.
And those 4 or 5 months and these last 7 months, it hasn't been like every day bright spirits, but I was telling you, whenever we would get together and talk, you always had this resilient kind of attitude and this resilient spirit. So when we thought about the conclusion of this series, I thought I want to give Paul a conversation and see if you'd share a little bit about like how through this have you been able to maintain your resilient spirit? Because you've been through a lot in life besides this. This is not the first tragedy. This is not the first like storm you've weathered. And even as you've talked with me about those things, you have this resiliency. And I'm curious, like, where do you think that comes from? How have you managed to continue with that resiliency in the midst of this storm?
It's funny you should say that. And I honestly don't feel like I'm that resilient. Maybe I just hide my feelings, or, because there, like you say, there's ups and downs for sure, especially how it's affected our family life. I mean, it went from being, a person that does it, everything around the house. I cooked and, I did stuff, and, my wife, she did the other half of what she did, and we could live our lives with the Ukrainians and everything like that we have living here. And now I'm just another, as sort of a burden, really, when you think about it. You have your good days and have your bad days.
Yeah.
The thing that was really good was the people that, my wife came, almost every day when she could. And when you came and a few other people, it was very uplifting. But then, when you're laying there for long periods of time and there's not too many friendly people in there, it gets on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was talking to Sue right before we started filming this, and Sue had said that you're making really some great progress in many ways, like gaining some strength. Like, tell us about like the future, the prognosis, like what's happening with your strength and mobility.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to see. Other people tell me that they see a lot.
Okay.
My physical therapist, my occupational therapist, both come in, and sometimes I'm thinking that they're just trying to be positive, which is very important. But they always say, "Oh, I've seen progress. You couldn't do that, a while ago, like simply lifting my legs off of the steps there, or getting up and sitting on the edge of the bed without holding on to something, and doing exercises and things like that." I notice them, but for me, it's not fast enough.
Not fast enough, yeah, right.
Yeah, I really just want to get up, and I got 2 bikes in the garage that need to be ridden.
Yes.
And I just want to get up and do things again, and help and be productive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's, I think, and I had retired about a year prior to the accident, and you quit working, and you got all this time on your hands, and you do the things that you want to do, and then this happens, and it's like, now what? It's rough.
Yeah. So people around you have helped a lot with just support and being a source of resiliency to help give you some strength and encouragement along the way, I hear you saying.
Yeah, and the people sending me their prayers, and people, the church in Poland that
that
the
you
Elam Center. I found out a week after I was in that they had gotten word and were praying for me, and they remembered me. You know what I mean? And all these people in Poland and here who just send their support to me. It's really helps.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow. One of the things that we've talked about, Paul, when it comes to resiliency is this idea of, knowing what we can control and what we can't control and focusing our energy on what we can control. Like, can you maybe speak to that in this circumstance? Like, what are the things that you've had control over that you've really put your energy into that have helped you?
Well, there's not a whole lot. I don't have a whole lot of control over anything.
Yeah.
Just physically not be able to do it, do things, but mentally, just saying, this is what happened, and I just have to deal with it and power through it, because there's really no choice.
Gotcha.
I mean, one can't just give up. I wouldn't say I'm a great person that prays a lot, but lately I have found myself praying quite a bit, especially, it's self-serving, but when the pain of my legs or when my wife's going through a lot of hard times, I pray for her, because this is, like I say, this affects the family.
Yeah. So I hear you saying, like, your thoughts, controlling those thoughts, and this I can control, accepting the reality of the circumstance. Like, I don't hear you denying it, right? Like, but saying this actually happened.
Yeah.
And this is the journey. And then prayer, that spiritual side of just like, I'm just kind of leaning into. I'm sure those conversations with God have been up and down along the way, right? Some honest conversations.
I used to have a thing, I shouldn't say it, but I was just upset with him.
Yep, you can say that. Yeah.
And not so good language, you know what I mean? So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul, like a lot of folks that are going to be watching this, they might find themselves in a circumstance that they would label as really difficult, life-altering, changing. You're right in the throes of something like that. Like, any wisdom you'd have for folks as they're navigating these things?
The best thing is to reach out to people and talk, and have some patience. Sometimes I don't have as much patience as I should have, and let people help you. You know what I mean?
That's good. That's good, man. Well, it's good to see you.
I appreciate you coming and visit me. Let me tell you.
I love it, and I love it. It was great to kind of get to see the changes in the house they've been able to do to help make it a little more accessible, and got your chair, so that's pretty awesome. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us. I know it'll be an encouragement. I hope you feel encouraged to know you're not alone, that our church is praying for you, continuing, and we're with you on this journey, you and Sue, for sure.
And if they know somebody who's hurting, go visit them.
Reach out, go visit them. I love it. That's it. I love it. We can contribute to people's resiliency with our presence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks, Paul. That's really great.
Right.
Love it.
Thank you.
It's a great story of resilience and honesty and the ups and downs in our lives. I'm going to ask for just a little moment of vulnerability for everybody. You didn't have to come up on stage today, but we've been in a series talking about resiliency. And one thing about church, unfortunately, is that it often presents as a space where we're supposed to be all put together, where we're not supposed to have anything going on in our lives. We're not supposed to have any doubt. We're not supposed to have any hurt. We're not supposed to, and that's very unhealthy, by the way. It was the hurting that came to Jesus, right? It was the ones who knew that life was bigger than them, and the ones who were often rejected by the religious systems that wanted everything to be perfect and assumed that if everything was perfect in your life, then that meant you were being blessed by the gods. And that's one of the beautiful things about Jesus and authentic Christianity, is that has nothing to do with God, those things that we go through in our lives. So we're getting ready to have communion. And I'm a big believer in that God, we use the word God to point to something that we'll never fully understand, that as people who interact with this great reality, this ground of being, we might say, through the Christian tradition, we have Jesus. And we see Jesus as the perfect icon of God, right? The scriptures say that he is the visible image of an invisible God. In other words, when you see the values of Jesus, you see the values of the divine. When you see the heart of Jesus, you see the heart of the divine. And that doesn't mean we don't misrepresent Jesus, by the way. Happens every now and then. But today, I really do believe that there is an encounter with the divine that's transformative at the individual level. And not just at the communal level. It has to happen at a community because the gospel really is about the redemption of the world and the healing of the world. Our texts tell us that all creation is longing for that, and that's the role that we follow as followers of Jesus. So this morning, as we have communion and a moment to reflect, I'm going to ask for a moment of vulnerability. And as a statement of faith, like we have these beautiful stories in Scripture where people came to Jesus and they did something, right? So we have the woman who had a blood disorder and no one could fix it. And she reached out to Jesus and touched the hem of his garment. And the story says that she found healing in the words of Jesus. We have stories of people outside the Jewish faith who came, a centurion who was certainly polytheistic, thought about the gods differently. He was an oppressor and came to Jesus because one of his servants was sick and just reached out to Jesus and said, just say the word. You don't even need to come to my house. Just say the word. And Jesus said, I've never seen faith in all of Israel. In other words, all the people that are in the right religion, right? We miss that because we want to say we're the right religion and everybody's the wrong religion, you know? But that's the beauty of Jesus, right? He's like, whatever. But this morning you are sitting here and maybe you feel like there's a circumstance going on in your world, in your life that is just a storm. It's just a storm. And you know that you're the captain of your ship and you know there are things that you can do, but you also know there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control and it's just been a bit overwhelming. And I'd like to pray for you today. And so as a statement of faith that you trust that God is present with you, would you just raise your hand and let me know that's you, that you're just in the middle of it right now? Yeah. Just keep your hand up for a second. It's okay. It's something freeing in just being honest. Both my hands are up. One to get you to raise yours and one is my own hand, right? There's something freeing about just being authentic about where we are in our lives. Let me pray for you. God, you are present with us in these storms. And while you are not the author of the hardships in our lives, you are not the author of pain and violence and poverty and distress and sickness. You are the author and the finisher of faith. And that you have put in the hearts of everyone an imagination of what is beyond and what is greater than ourselves. And so, in Jesus' name, we lean into an image of this divine, of you that is good and loving, and that there is healing in our world, that there is restoration, that there is redemption in the midst of loss. And it's a great mystery, and we don't know how it all works, but in this moment, we come with a sense of humility to know that we need something greater than ourselves. And we find that in Jesus, in the teaching and in the life, in the death, and in the resurrection, in the story of Jesus, we find that hope that is personal. So I ask for every person who raised their hand to in this moment know that you are with them in their valley. That the goodness of God is not the goodness of the events of our lives as we perceive them, but that the goodness of the divine, may we know, is a presence that sustains us through it all, that walks with us through the valley of the shadow of death, so that we might not fear any evil. And as we receive communion today, this very strange ritual that we still do thousands and thousands of years later, may our hearts be open to the reality of that presence, and may our emotions be present to it, and may our souls be energized and strengthened, even if our physical bodies can't be. And we ask all this in the name of love, believing that we are called to love and to reach out, as Paul said, to those around us who are hurting, to those around us who are walking through and going through difficulties, that we might be the hands and feet of love in this world. Amen. If you're able to, I want to invite you to stand as we receive communion today. If you're a guest this morning and you're not familiar with this is a metaphor. It's one of my favorite words. You're like, we know. But this is, it is not simply a ritual. It's a metaphor for what fuels and energizes and heals us as individuals, but also the world. And it is sacrificial love. That's what heals the world. And that's what is present, empowering us and strengthening us. And so we take the juice and we take the bread as a reminder that it's in the broken one. It's in the death of God, right? It's in the humiliation of God that we model our lives, to die to self, to live under a sense of humiliation, to love our enemies and to forgive those around us. And there's an empowerment in that, but there's also healing. There's this beautiful text that says, by his stripes we're healed. And that's not this promise of physical healing. It's the healing of our souls, the healing of our outlook and our way of being. And so in the death and resurrection of Jesus that we remember in this moment, we know that our lives are constant reminders that we live that life, that there's always a dying and there's always a rising, and that's hope. So if you're in a dying moment, that storm, I hope that you see this as an invitation to live into the rising and to not deny the dying. Don't deny it, it's there, but to come with a sense of hope and resiliency in the midst of it. If you've never been here before to our church, you're welcome at this table. See, a God worthy of worship is not a God that says some people are welcome at the table and some people aren't welcome at the table. I don't want to have anything to do with that God. Nothing to do with that God whatsoever. That God isn't worthy of my time. Definitely not worthy of my vocation. But a God that says, I am love. I don't love, I am love. That's a God worthy of worship. That's a God worthy of learning from, of being present in. And so that's what this moment is about. So you don't have to understand it. Guess what? The people that have been here year after year after year, they don't get it. It's a mystery. But it's a mystery that strengthens us and reminds us that it's in loving others, it's in sacrificing for others that we are healed and the world is healed. And when we welcome the stranger, all those things. And so to everyone here, regardless of your belief, regardless of your journey of faith, the body of Christ broken for you and the blood of Christ shed for you, not so that you could go to heaven, but so that you could live as if heaven were right here. And so that you could live with a sense of wholeness and assurance, even in the face of death. And so you're welcome. If you're at a table, you know that they're there. If you're here, it's all gluten-free, alcohol-free, so everyone who would like to participate can participate. We're going to sing a couple of songs. I encourage you to sit, stand, whatever you want to do, be still, sing, but just give yourself a few minutes to breathe and to be in one another's presence. You know why there's something powerful about coming together? And I'm not just telling you this like tuning in online is bad, that there's power in that. I'm just saying every person here is made in the image of God. And when we come together, we just bring more and more of the image of God into a physical space. And so to be in the space with one another is to be in the presence of God. Isn't that good? There's no mantra, there's no special prayer, there's just presence. There's just being. And if you've ever gone through a difficulty in life and someone has walked in and just sat with you and put their arm around you, you know what I'm talking about. No words, no prayer, no class to go to, as much as I want you to go through Fresh Perspective. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Just being is the gift. So God is present because we are here and we are the image of God. And truly our spirituality, our energy that we bring to this space is healing and generative and beautiful. So the body of Christ broken for you and all 8 billion people on this planet, regardless of race, religion, creed, sexuality, finances, immigration status, regardless of any of those things, the body of Christ broken and the blood of Christ shed so that we might participate in our own transformation and in the transformation of this world into a place of wholeness and fullness and peace on earth. You are welcome to the table today.